Carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates are one of your main macronutrients. They're your main energy source. Now, you can get energy from fats and proteins, yes, but your body has to work much harder to get the energy from these food sources, and it prefers to use carbohydrate. Now, carbohydrate can get demonized, it can get a bad rap, but what we want to think about is the type of carbohydrates that we're eating. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But we need carbohydrate for energy. We need it for heart function, muscle function. We need it for our brain. Now, our brain uses glucose. It's its primary energy source. And despite the fact that the brain is only 2% of your overall body weight, it uses up 20% of your energy every single day. So remember, we need carbohydrates. Now, there are three types of carbohydrates. They're sugars, and they're starches, and they're fibre. And they're divided up into complex carbohydrates and simple carbohydrates. And when we're talking about complex carbohydrates, we're talking about carbohydrates that have longer chains of sugars and fibre. So they're released, the energy is released slower, and they fill you up. Things like brown rice, things like starchy vegetables such as sweet potatoes and legumes. And our simple carbohydrates give us instant energy, and they spike our blood sugar. And they are things like table sugar and white carbohydrates such as white pasta and white bread. So when we eat our carbohydrate, we want to think about eating those complex carbohydrates that fill us up and release the energy slowly, as well as keeping our digestion in check because of the fibre that it contains. And the fibre is a type of carbohydrate. It aids digestion, keeping us fuller for longer. It also helps to keep our cholesterol levels in check. Now, when we talk about carbohydrates, we also talk about the glycemic index of a carbohydrate. And what that refers to is the speed at which the energy is released when you eat that carbohydrate in your food compared to sugar, pure sugar. So the higher the glycemic index of the food, you're going to release that energy quicker and have what we call these spikes, such as white bread, white pasta, chocolate bars and sweets. And things that have a low GI are your complex carbohydrates, your brown rice, your brown pasta, your sweet potatoes, your butternut squash, your quinoa and your legumes. So they are your preferred carbohydrate source. Now remember guys, we need carbohydrate for energy. And if we don't have it, what's the first thing that's going to go? 20% of our energy expenditure is used by our brain. So think about the types of carbohydrate that you eat.